Winter is here, and the White Walkers are coming. Sell your skins for Dragon Glass at bitskins.com.
Gamescom Invitational was the first major PUBG event aimed towards esports, held on the 23rd of August 3 months ago. With $350,000 of prize pool on the line and 100,000 viewers watching, there's no doubt there was a demand for competitive PUBG. Unfortunately, during the Gamescom Invitational, we experienced a severe lack of spectating ability, third-person game modes, and a boring metagame of camping the blue. With no major PUBG LAN tournaments since it ended, everyone was eagerly looking forward to IEM Oakland and what it could offer.
This weekend at the Oracle Arena, we will find the world's greatest PUBG squad. And when the dust settles, 4 players will have proven themselves the IEM Oakland 2017 champions.
Since August, PUBG has grown tenfold with an average of 880,000 new players. Lots of updates, gameplay changes and fixes have been implemented, which begs the question, did competitive PUBG improve at IEM Oakland? Given what happened at the Gamescom Invitational event, I think it's only natural to take a look at the spectating first. Overall for IEM Oakland, it's been decent. We got to see a lot of action, and for the most part, the camera was in the right place. First person spectating has been adopted as the best way to show the actual firefight, and thankfully we've moved away from free camming around a battle. Something cool that ESL have implemented is the 4-man split screen perspective. This is a great way to get eyes on all of the action that a particular squad is facing, and serves well as a highlight feature to show each member's positioning. For this example with FaZe, you can see how each player holds the complex and how they cover each other all in one shot. This may become hard to view any of the action for mobile viewers, but I don't think tournament organisers should ever cater their stream production to devices that are no larger than the size of their hand. Another addition IEM introduced was the lower third that displayed the team standings towards the top of the leaderboard. This was shown late into the tournament in Game 7, which gave crucial information on what teams to keep an eye on going forward. As far as I know, this was the only time this graphic was shown during a match, and it would have been cool to see it for the start of Game 8 as well, just to keep viewers informed on the standings. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the spectating was perfect. I said it was decent, but there were moments where you kind of just wondered how it could all go so wrong. It's the most frustrating thing hearing the caster talk about all of the action kicking off and being shown nothing but the map and a camera in the sky.
Look at Liquid, look at NIP, look at all these guys up there. This is huge for them. Don't know if they're going to be able to get away with much here. It does look like Andy is finding his targets elusive, just got caught. Only not killed, so there's still chance there. But again, if he's finding these shots and that new circle's now starting to loom, you have to keep that in mind. Crunch going down, Sweater going down. NIP looks like they've been dealt with at this point. Liquid are still alive with a couple of members there. Wind and Rain holding on. There's a lot of teams still in this that maybe you don't expect. And guess who's still alive? Good old Sigsy. He finally made it in, still staring at Luminosity's backs. They're still in this one in front of him.
Even when the camera is on the right person and a fight is clearly about to happen, the observer would sometimes swap away to look at the map whilst the kill that we've been building up to see finally takes place.
2 men just sort of standing here, so that'll be a pickup. He's got the rest of his crew coming.
But this is dangerous. Liquid have probably, they've got a nice position up here. Look at these bikes as well.
Yeah.
And they might hear this car coming soon. It's just off towards the kind of like northeast side. Yeah, you're going to hear them respond now. This could be an absolute shooting gallery. Scoom's still going to be picking up some meds. Thanks, Scoom. Don't worry about
Scoom's
helping
behind
your team.
a rock.
Yeah, it's something we're used to now. And DC do look like they're going to get away. No, Hollywood, he caught you, and who's one of the top fraggers going in for DC before, straight up killed him with a vehicle explosion. Great work from Liquid, and especially Hollywood, a classic in this one.
It's even worse when you have the casters both hyping up a play that's about to unfold with a clear call that TSM are going for the hard push and that they are hunting for kills.
This is just going to be a hard push from TSM. I think that they know they have control now. They're just going to push up on top of this hill, and they're just hunting for Jim.
Yeah, I mean, they can't go any further because Tempo Storm are right there, so they're basically caught between TSM and Tempo Storm. These guys are racking up the points, and it has not been a good day for FaZe fans out there so far. Obviously coming into this one as, I would say, strong favorites. They've had such a strong showing in the online tournaments, but it isn't to be so far today as Haxit goes down to Viz, and that leaves Yempty as the only man standing.
During that same game in the same compound, Demon was constantly referencing a big firefight that was happening on the map, but the camera was glued to EG, who were seeing nothing.
EG, they're in a perfect position, but I'd love to see the TSM phase fight that's been happening for the last 5 minutes. At the moment, it's continuing to go on in the north area of this. EG, they're very much sitting pretty in this complex. They've got the individual players in and around the complexes, but they're not really being pushed too much for it. So their action is happening on the edges of the circle at the moment because they are basically bang in the center. You can see
as the camera switches back to the map to show the next circle, the amount of action that everyone missed between TSM and FaZe, with hit markers everywhere on the outskirts of the circle. The spectating got so frustrating at one point that D-Man actually called them out for it mid-broadcast.
Awkward spots where you know exactly where somebody's at and you can't look away from them, but at the same time you feel like there's got to be something going on back behind me. I need to check that window.
I feel like the cameraman thinks the same as you. You just can't look away from them, despite the fact nothing will ever happen here.
I'm not sure what this shot even was, but it looked like the observer was actually drunk trying to capture the drop on camera.
Noble, so they're going to be happy for that down in South Georgia. Pol looking towards the back six at the moment. Oh, sorry, the front six. I'll tell a light. It's going to drop right on top of the tower by the looks of it.
Sometimes the action does all kick off at once, and instead of following at least one of the battles, we are left watching everything on the map. Literally no action gets displayed.
You see there's a lot of transitions. Everybody's starting to pile into the circle now. As you can see, Wind and Rain coming in, Penta coming in, everything happening in towards that south side. Luminosity actually getting pinched from the top by Alliance as well as they come in. AAA, they are in trouble. Monkey goes down. They're going to get wiped out.
This is kind of how the game just plays out at the moment, however. Barely any fights early game, and then a mad, chaotic clash of teams all at once. This puts major pressure on the observers to pick out a fight and stick with it, regardless of all of the other conflicts going on around the map. Throughout the tournament, there seemed to be a mix-up of audio when switching between observers. Players or free cams would sound like they were underwater.
To happen there, once that first circle swings in, curious where those rotate spots are, where they like to transition towards.
I do want to point out School and what's going on there. Ninjas and Pajama.
Paradox, Xanta, etc. all over there. Cloud9, they won the last round. Very good.
I'm not sure whether this is the PUBG observer tools bugging out or something with ESL's production, but it happened numerous times throughout the event. Another issue that still comes under the spectating category are the unavoidable FPS dips on stream. There were so many situations where the gameplay looked janky or like a slideshow of action. Obviously this is something that isn't down to the observers, but more of a problem with PUBG itself and its lack of optimization. When we look back at the viewing numbers from the Gamescom Invitational, we saw that it caps around 100,000 viewers. Fast forward to IEM Oakland, the next prestigious LAN event, and the numbers seem to have dipped, peaking at 74,000. This decrease in viewership could be because of multiple factors. At Gamescom, the tournament included lots of popular streamers and YouTubers that would encourage their fan base to watch and see them compete. IEM Oakland is made up of a purely competitive player base, with professional teams being invited and huge online qualifiers to get the best of the best. Not everyone will know all of the players competing if they don't follow the scene, and if their favourite streamer isn't included, then there's less of a reason to tune in. Also, with the event being the Intel Extreme Masters, it means that there are multiple tournaments being held at the same time. CSGO was one of them, running alongside PUBG, which has a lot of crossover in the player base. This was probably one of the bigger factors that took away viewership, as a majority of matches clashed with the playoff games of CSGO that has a large following. It does seem odd that the player base for PUBG is so enormously huge, yet it's struggling to hit 100,000 viewers during the finals. The fact that big PUBG LAN events aren't as frequent should mean that they develop more interest. Games like CSGO have LAN events every 2 weeks, and for the most part are hitting viewer numbers of above 100,000 during finals. The format for IEM Oakland was obviously orientated a lot more to that of the competitive scene, with 12 invites and 8 teams grinding through the qualifiers. The funny thing is that this event had $150,000 less of a prize pool than Gamescom, despite it being geared towards the most hardcore players in the community who are 100% dedicated to PUBG. $200,000 was the total prize for IEM Oakland, which might be a sign that they are bringing it down a notch to reflect the viewership levels somewhat. So 20 squads, 8 maps in total, first person only, no red zones, and 1.5 times the amount of loot. The main thing here to celebrate is the fact that since Gamescom, they've decided to opt towards first person as the main focus of competitive gameplay. I'm not sure if the loot drop increase is new, but it seems fine and the no red zone rule maintains the same. Seeing an 8 map pool for a tournament like this works well and helps weed out any anomalies over the 2 days of competition. In theory, only the best teams who are the most consistent should end up placing in the money. During an interview, one of the PUBG team mentioned that IEM Oakland will be played on 60-tick servers instead of 30.
Just that now that we're on LAN, we can run our servers at 60-tick instead of 30, so players will see a lot more smooth and fluid gameplay.
This is a huge boost to gameplay conditions and will hopefully only increase in the future. The kill reward system has been tweaked with 10 points per kill. At Gamescom, kills were only given 4 points in squad matchups, so it's good to see more incentives being put in place to hunt for action. On top of this, the placement rewards have been adjusted, with a win giving out 300 points, 225 for second, 190 for third, and so on. This used to be 500 points for a win at Gamescom, 360 for second, and 290 for third. With this new system at IEM Oakland, kills have more significance with an increase in points and less points rewarded for team placements. This section is going to be more of a general observation of gameplay meta, as you can't really compare the casual streamers from Gamescom to the professional players at IEM. The main thing I wanted to check up on is if teams are playing the blue as much as they used to, and whether it's still a viable strategy. To answer it plainly, yes, it's still a thing, but certain teams are only staying in the blue for early circles, taking small amounts of damage in order to loot. Very rarely were there full-on firefights in the blue late game, and for the most part, everyone was quickly centering on the circle. One team that springs to mind when playing the blue are TSM, who utilise this strategy a lot of the time to avoid early conflicts and loot as much as possible.
TSM, let's talk about them because they're still outside the zone, helping North Georgia Paul as they continue to run this wide angle.
Like where the next circle could be at. But in this case, it's really playing off from everybody. Now this is where it gets really, really bad. All of these squads that have been playing towards the edge are going to have to push in against that western side of that circle.
For most of the games though, the pattern was very similar. A lot of teams have their preferred places to drop, and they all seem to do their best in avoiding each other. Searching for as many cars as possible early on was key, in order to drive everyone out separately to loot in safer areas, away from the plane's flight path. Driving separately in vehicles is preferred as it's less risky should one of your vehicles blow up. Nobody wants to put all of their eggs in one basket unless they absolutely have no choice. This also tied into the strategy for late game where teams, if left without cover, would form a fort with the cars for them to play around.
There's almost no cover in some of those open spots, so they've got a really great chance to take these guys out. C9 has grabbed control of this hill. It's a big hill for them if they can try to lock it in. They've used cars to block the uphill shot where they have a little bit of a risk.
A popular strategy seems to be getting one member of the squad to drive forward to scout out locations that are free to hold, and then bring in the rest of the team. This takes up much of the early game skirmishes, with not a lot happening until the later circles. This is where it turns into absolute chaos, with roughly 70 players all battling at once for a piece of territory. At the moment, this is just how the games naturally play out, so of course it makes it harder for the observers and commentators to keep track of every single storyline. Unfortunately, the water meta is still a thing. During Game 6, we got to see a bunch of players hanging out and avoiding bullets underwater. Thankfully, there weren't too many circles that landed on water, but it's worrying to see that it could still happen on a large scale, similar to what we saw at Gamescom. A cool play that I saw from FaZe was Fuzzface dying out of choice to the circle. He was the last man remaining, low HP, and pinned down inside of the warehouse with the blue moving in. Instead of challenging AAA in an unfavourable gunfight, he denies them the extra 10 points by pushing into the blue.
All we've got left is Fuzzface.
It's one man against the world here for FaZe, and he wants to do everything he can. He knows he can't. He denies them the kill by running into the blue. A smart play from him.
This might not seem like much, but if we take a look at the final leaderboards, the payout brackets of 1st to 8th place were relatively close. Let's stick with FaZe for this example, who came in 4th with 1,355 points and $20,000 in prize money. If they got themselves 4 more kills, they could have been sat at 2nd place and be walking away with $45,000 instead. This makes denying and finishing off kills even more of a priority in order to close the distance and climb the leaderboard.
This is something we should talk about. Securing kills is becoming so prevalent right now with 10 points a kill.
Since PUBG was released, we are seeing more and more organisations picking up teams to compete. This is a great sign for the future of the esport, enabling a lot of players to go full time and inevitably help progress the game forward from tournament to tournament. With the game's skyrocketing player base, PUBG's potential is yet to be fully unleashed, and with 1.0 on the horizon, nobody knows when it's going to peak. Whilst IEM Oakland saw a dip in viewership compared to Gamescom, the essentials of spectating the game have definitely improved, and overall things are moving forward.
We've got a great team, and we do events like this to both promote the great teams that take part, but also to learn and try to improve every time. So it's a big learning curve for us, but with these guys' help and everyone else, I think we're going to get better and better and better.
So they're not perfect, and as PlayerUnknown said, these events are definitely big learning curves. PUBG is probably one of the most challenging esports to set up and put into a stadium, but it's improving each time, which is a good sign for the future.